Hi, Cornerstone kids. I want to share with you today about names. Psalm chapter 9, verse 10 says, "And those who know your name put their trust in you." That verse is talking about God's name, and it says if we know God's name, we'll be able to trust him. Now, in Bible times, names always had meaning. So, for example, the name Isaac meant laughter. And if you remember the story of Isaac, his mom laughed when she found out she was going to have a baby. Esau was Jacob's brother, and Esau was very hairy. And his name, you guessed it, means hairy. Eve's name meant the mother of all living. It's a pretty fitting name for the very first woman. And Abram, his name was changed to Abraham because Abraham meant a father of a multitude of nations. And that was one of the promises God gave to Abraham, that he would be a father of many nations. We also know that for names, we don't always have one name. There's lots of names. Sometimes they're titles, like a son or a daughter, or maybe a teacher or a coach. The things that we do give us titles, and that tells about us. Sometimes we have nicknames, and sometimes those are just shortened versions of our names. So for example, if you're called William, someone might call you Will for short. But sometimes nicknames have meaning about the person that they're given to. For example, if you can run really fast, people might call you Speedy. Or if you're really smart, they might call you the Brain. But God, he has names too, not just one, but many. And those names tell us what he's like, who he is, and what he does. And in the Bible, God has over 700 names and titles. He must really want us to know what he's like. In fact, in the very first verse of the Bible, we are given one of God's names. Now, can you think of the very first verse in the Bible? One of the things that's really interesting is that the Bible wasn't written in English. That's the language that you and I speak and read. The Bible was written in a language called Hebrew. So we read Genesis 1, verse 1 like this. "In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth." But in Hebrew, that word God would look very, very different. The word God in Hebrew would look like this. Now, that would be very hard for you and I to read. So the name that covers up God that we could read would sound like this: Elohim. Elohim is one of God's names. And that name has a meaning. And that name means strong creator. So we find out in the very first sentence of the Bible that our God is a strong creator. And that's really important for what happens next, because we find out some pretty incredible things about God in chapter 1 of Genesis. We find out that this strong creator, he made the heavens and the earth and the stars and the land and the sea and even grasshoppers and galaxies and mountains and monkeys. He made all of these things out of nothing. If you and I were to bake a cake or to build a house of Legos, we would have to start with something. We'd have to have flour and eggs, or for a Lego house, we'd have to have Legos. Now, God didn't have anything. He didn't start with something. He started with nothing. And from his voice, he spoke and he made all of those things. How amazing is he? He is definitely a strong creator. He even created me and you. Now that is strong. In Psalm 139, verse 16, it says, "You saw me before I was born. Every day of my life was recorded in your book, and every moment was laid out before a single day had passed." Elohim, the strong creator who created the sun and the stars in the sky, the sea and the sand, he created you. And God didn't just make you. He made you with a plan for your life. God is the strong creator of the universe and of us. We can see all around us just how strong and powerful he is. So we know that we can trust him. He promises to care for us and to help us do good in all the things that he has planned for us to do. God created you, he loves you, and he has a plan for you, and he is strong enough to make it happen. There is nothing that he cannot do. So when you read Genesis 1:1, "In the beginning, God," I hope you remember that He is your strong creator and you can trust Him with your whole life.